Hello, I'm Andrew Hyatt. I'd like to talk to you about EKG version 0.2. EKG is an Emacs note-taking application based on SQLite that is very tag-driven. If you want to see more information about this, you could look at my previous video. But this particular video is really just about the changes in 0.2, and I'll just demo a few of these so you get a general idea of what's in the new version. So first of all, well, I'm not going to demonstrate this because they're just hooks, a bunch of hooks. Customization is now possible in ways it was not before. I didn't really have any hooks in the previous version. Now there's hooks. And I need hooks for some stuff I will show you later. Okay, so hooks. Now let's talk about two new commands. EKG show notes latest captured and EKG show notes latest modified. You just run them and it'll just show you the notes that you've captured or modified. So it's pretty easy. And it will show you 20 notes by default, but you could change this by there's a variable EKG note size. So you really only get 20. There's no pagination or anything. Yeah, actually, that would pagination or some way to change it maybe with a prefix argument. The number of notes would be nice. Something to think about for later versions. Okay. Actually, same. So that was EKG show notes latest captured, EKG show notes latest modified. Same thing, except when you change a note, then it'll be modified, and you can see the notes you modified, including created, in order. Okay. We've added templating. And I think templating is actually one of the cooler things because I think the way we're doing it is just unusual. It's very interesting. I don't think anyone has done templating quite like this. Then again, there's a lot of stuff out there, but so I don't know for sure. But let me demonstrate it, and you can see how it works. So first of all, let's do EKG capture. And the way this works is that to define a template, you define it in EKG itself. So like everything else, it's going to be stored in our database. So let's say, for this case, why don't we have a template for today's date? Okay. So the template is, we have a template tag. So this means what I'm doing here is I'm defining a note with a tag and a template tag. And so now when we create a note with a tag that is co-tagged with template, it'll just add this particular version, this particular, whatever I type here will just be added to the buffer. So it's super, super simple. This is just bare bones templating. We don't do anything with cursor positioning, but you can't because you could have multiple. I could define many templates with date, whatever today's date is, and template, and they just all get added in sequence. So you can't really. It's kind of powerful in a way because you can just keep adding templates you want to add, and they'll just keep getting added. But because we're adding potentially multiple, we can't do things like cursor positioning. So let's just say there's a template. Let's just say, have you finished your EKG video yet? Okay, and now let's do a capture again. Aha, see? Now we have this automatically. And same thing if I were to add a tag that had a template. So I have, so if I added another tag that was templatized, it would also just add at any time, it's just going to add that templated text at the end of my note. One thing to note is that we don't really watch out for new tags. Every time you add something, we watch out for tags that have been completed with completion. So if you want to add a what you want to make sure you include templates, you have to use completion. So like, I bet it'll probably just add. Actually, it does kind of take pains to not add the same template twice. Yeah, so good. It doesn't do that. But if it was a different template, you'd see it added there because I used completion. And if I didn't use completion, I just typed it out without using completion, it wouldn't add the template. Not ideal. I'd like it to be modified. Then again, so maybe people kind of like not adding the template in some circumstances. We'll see how if there's any feedback. That's templating. So as you can see, super, super easy. Okay, now let's talk about embedding. So I've added embeddings as an optional add-on. That is, it's another file. You don't need to require it. If you don't require it in your Emacs config, you won't get it. But if you do require it, you'll get it, and it'll be integrated. The idea behind embeddings is that we call out to us embeddings will transform text into vectors. Okay, huge, many dimensional vectors. We can't compute the embeddings in Emacs. Like, that's a kind of a serious bit of work that like just Emacs is not going to be very good at, and requires like AI training, et cetera, et cetera. So like what we do is we call out to OpenAI, which happens to have a embedding service. So you have to have a OpenAI account. You have to sign up. You have to pay. So, and all your notes get sent to OpenAI. So just warning, like I can imagine not everyone is going to be cool with that. But if you are cool with that, you can turn it up. You could use embeddings. You can create an API key and store it. If you require embeddings and you don't have the key, things are not going to work. So only really start requiring the embeddings once you have that key. But the idea is that once you create a note, it'll send it to OpenAI. It will store those embeddings. You could also call EKB embeddings generate all. It'll go through all of your notes and generate the embeddings. This takes a while, so don't do it on the like while you're trying to be super productive. Do it, go out and get a coffee. So once you have embeddings, though, cool things become possible. There's three basic commands. So one is you can find notes that are related to the notes you're creating. The notes you're viewing. So let's just say EKG show notes with tags. We'll do things that are like, yes, recipes. Yes. Okay, cacio e pepe, right. And now we can say, this is not bound to a key, but this is something that you could bind if you want to bind it to a key and you do it often, is EKG embedding show similar. So it takes a little bit of, where did my embedding, okay. Yes. So the, unfortunately, okay, this is like one of these things that I don't have a great design solution for, is that these notes are not named, so it's kind of, to refer to it when we have titles, we just kind of take the beginning of the text, which in this case is an org mode drawer, so it's kind of dumb. But like this, it's an org mode drawer because this originally was imported from org Rome. And anyway, yeah, but you can see, like, I started out with the cacio e pepe recipe, now I have pasta aglio e olio. That, like, if you know your Italian food, this is like, wow, that is incredible. That's actually a fantastic result. And then I have like notes from when I last cooked pasta aglio e olio is something like this, cooking, some cooking notes. It's doing a quite very good job. So that's one thing. You could also do EKB embedding search, where let's search for, let's see, yeah, let's just, I mean, I have, this is my personal notes file. I have all sorts of things that I don't really care to be displayed, although it's not that personal, but like why? But the recipe stuff is very, everyone likes to see the recipe stuff. So let's just say everything related to spaghetti. Although, I mean, the great thing about this is like, embeddings are very powerful in a way. Like you don't need to match the same term. Let's see if we could actually, oh, I know, noodles. Okay, if I just search for noodles, it should be getting my pasta recipes. I know Italians will be like, no, pasta is not noodles. Okay, I know that. Pasta is not noodles. Pasta is its own charming thing, but it is similar in the embedding space to noodles. Okay, Italians, I'm sorry. The embeddings are not wrong here. It's similar. Okay, so you can see, it's like they're not all great. Like why is this here? I don't know. But it's relatively accurate. Okay, that's then the third one is even the most cool one. So let's say that let me switch over to like elfeed, which I just like have a bunch of stuff. Okay, so here's an article that I'm reading on elfeed. Just the great thing about Emacs is like you can do all sorts of things in Buffer. You can see all sorts of information. So we offer EKG embedding. I haven't downloaded the latest version, but sorry, I wrote this. The thing I'm about to tell you is I did it at work and I just haven't downloaded it to this particular machine that I'm doing, my personal machine. But I'll just describe it. You can just run EKG show similar to buffer, I think is the command. And it will generate an embedding for the buffer you're in and show you your notes that are similar to the buffer you're looking at. Like that's pretty cool. And I think just imagine how powerful that is. Like just anywhere you are in Emacs, you'd be like, hey, what notes do I have that are similar to this buffer? That is great. So if I did this, like what would it look like? It would look like the same searches for pasta or noodles I've just did. So like that's what it would look like. Okay, so that's embeddings. Again, you need OpenAI. It is flexible, but OpenAI is the only embeddings API I know of. If you know of others, please submit a pull request to add them. It is designed to be flexible. It should work with any embedding, creator. In fact, so hopefully, there'll be more competition in the embedding creation space. But actually, I said like it costs money. I've spent. I mean, you can imagine like I have a bunch of notes. It's not crazy, but like I have a bunch of notes. I've done it a few times to generate all of these embeddings. I've spent 6 cents, 6 US cents. So not a bad deal. I would advise you, if you do sign up for OpenAI, set a limit to how much you can spend. Like I can't guarantee that I don't have a bug that's gonna just like generate embeddings all over the place. So be like, for me, I said like I don't want to spend more than $5 a month. And so far, I've spent, as I said, $6. But every time you search or do find embedding similar to a buffer, you're costing yourself money, a very small amount of money, but some money. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of functionality that you might care about. We have various kind of infrastructural improvements, such as just more flexible notes buffers that can, if you do EKG show notes with trash in trash, you'll get a buffer with a reasonable name. That didn't happen before. All the names are standardized, and it's all, it's very easy to create, new notes listings that work correctly. So there's like 5 or 6 created now, but it's, if you want to create your own that gets notes and does some, gets notes according to whatever criteria you want, it's pretty easy to kind of like see how we do it and in the file, and then roll your own if you want to. I think the other thing I'd like to note is that what you're looking at here is a changelog. So I've added a changelog, and it's in documentation. The documentation is compiled to text info. So for the first time, we actually have documentation that you should be able to look at by going, doing, medx info. Is it going to work? So I haven't installed it. I only look at my own version that I kind of do for development. Since this is on Melpa, when I push this, it should be installed by Melpa. We'll see if that works, but if it doesn't work, then I'll follow up, and it'll eventually work. You'll be able to see the documentation, which is new. And what I've done is, there's the README, and the README is now shorter, and most of the documentation is now in the documentation file, which is, you could read it in org, or you could read it in text info. So I've added a lot of stuff there, so hopefully that will be useful to people. That's it for version 0.2. If you have things that you think we should work on, feel free to suggest something, a feature request in our project, which is on GitHub. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy EKG.